Hello friends, welcome to another video of Codelligent. In this video, we will try to understand what are tuples in C#.NET. These are topics which we will be looking into. First, we will see what exactly is a tuple class or a generic tuple class which is available in .NET Framework from a long time. And then we will see what are value tuples which has been recently introduced. And then we will look into named tuples. And finally, we will look into a demo wherein we can use tuples in different scenarios. First, let's try to understand what is generic tuple class. A tuple is actually a data structure which can contain data of different types. So if at all you have a requirement wherein you want to pass multiple data types values together, you can use a tuple. So you can see on the right side, this is the way we can create a tuple. So you can use the keyword tuple, and in the angular braces which you use normally for generics, you can use different data types. So I have used int, string. You can use many more if you put comma. So the maximum possible is 8 values, and you can initialize this variable by saying new tuple of int comma string, and in the braces you can pass the values. Or there is a static method which tuple class provides. So you can say tuple.create and just pass the values. So based on the data type of the value which you use, internally it will decide what type of tuple object it is. So in this I have used one integer and one string. So internally it creates this obj similar to the above one with an int and string. And if you want to use these values later in the code, you can always use the object dot item1 item2. So if you are having more than 2, you will get the options like obj dot item3 item4 and so on. So as I said, it can take up to 8 values. So if you need more than 8 values, there is an option wherein you can nest different tuples and you can make it more than 8 values. But one thing which you need to keep in mind, it's a reference type. So because of which it was having a performance issue, and then Microsoft has introduced value tuples. So the value tuple is similar to the tuple class, but its in underlying concept is not the tuple class, it's a value tuple struct, and this can take more than 8 values. The way you use it is different. You don't use the tuple class or the tuple keyword. Instead, you can directly say var any variable is equal to, put the values in the braces. So I have used 1 2 3 comma abc. I can use comma 1 comma 2. So I can just go on. So it can take as many numbers, as many values as possible, and then you can use them as obj dot item1 item2 item3 etc. So we will see in the demo section how we can use these types, wherein you will get more clarity about it. But here, if you can see, you have a very big disadvantage, that is like whenever you use some variable, like for example if I say var employee equal to 1 2 3 comma abc, where I think 1 2 3 is the employee id and abc is the employee name. But when you are using this variable later in the code, you will have to reference it saying obj.item1 obj.item2, but at that time you don't know what is item1 and what is item2, so the values hold no information. So to overcome this, there is a new thing which is introduced, that is named tuples. So named tuples is same as value tuple. The underlying stuff is the value tuple structure itself, not the class, but it has an option wherein you can name these values. So the same way how you have shown in the previous code, I can say var obj and I can define my type, that is emp id colon the value, then emp name colon the value. So now instead of using obj.item1 and item2, I can use these names which I have defined here. So these names, you need not have to create a variable of this name, or you need not create a separate class with some property or anything. It's just dynamic, and this has been introduced recently in C# 7.1. So now let's jump into Visual Studio and see how we can use them. I'm in Visual Studio, and I have created a small console application which has a main method. So first I'll show you how to use the tuple class. So when you say tuple, you can see there is a class called tuple, and you can put the angular braces. you can say int comma string comma double. So whichever data types you want to use, you can use. So I am using 3 variables now, and then I can say some maybe obj or whatever variable you want to name it, equal to new tuple, and then I can just pass the value. So I will say 1 to 1 comma some name like maybe Thomas comma some double value maybe 30,000, and that's it. So your tuple is ready. So whenever you want to use it, you can say obj dot, you can see there is item 1, item 2 and item 3. So anytime you can get these values. Or if you don't want to use this way, you can say var emp equal to use the tuple class, and there is a create method. So you can say create, and you can say 1 to 1 comma Thomas comma some value. So this way also you can create, and again you can use it emp dot item 1, item 2 and item 3. So these two are nothing but similar. The only difference is you have create the instances by using the tuple class and instantiating it, whereas here the tuple class exposes a static method to create, and ultimately you return the same tuple object. So let's see an example where we can use it. For this way of using tuple is very much helpful when you are dealing with some methods. So for example, I have some method like public static maybe void get employee details. So imagine that this method has lot of functionalities, wherein it is fetching it from maybe database or wherever, like there is a lot of functionalities involved in this, but ultimately at the end you want to return some data related to employee. So if I use int, I can return return the employee ID, or I can use string to return the employee name, but you want to return the employee ID, name and double together. So how you will return it? So one option is maybe you can use the out parameters, or another option is you can create a class of employee type and instantiate the object here and then return it. Or if you don't want to take all those pains, it is like just one time usage, then instead of creating a class and all those stuff, you can just use tuple. So instead of string, I will return tuple int comma string comma double. So now whenever I want to return, I can say return new tuple, and I can pass 1221, that is my employee ID, and then some name maybe like John, and the salary, so maybe like 30,000, and I can use it here in the method like var emp equal to get employee details, and I will just print it console.writeLine. I will say maybe emp id, and I will use emp dot. Now you know that the item 1 is the employee ID, item 2 is the name, and item 3 is the salary. So I'll say item 1 comma, I'll say the name, so that is emp dot item 2 has salary, maybe I'll say rupees, and I will say here emp dot item 3. So now when you run this, you get the values from that method. So you can see emp id 1221 John has salary 30,000. Now instead of this, in the new C# you can use the value type. So what you have to do is just replace this tuple with brackets. So instead of using the tuple class, we are using the value type, and when you are returning, no need of creating the new instantiation of class and all, just return these values in the brackets. So now again this holds good the same way. Now if you run it, it remains the same, but the only disadvantage here is you don't know what exactly is item 1, item 2, item 3. So later in the, if your, this is a simple application, so if your application is very complex and it has a lot of code, then by the end you use this emp variable, you might not know what is item 1, what is item 2, or what is item 3. To make it better, you can use it the named values. So to change this method into named tuple, you can define here int, you can say emp id string emp name and double salary. So this is how you can use the named ones. So now instead of item 1, now when you press dot, you can see you have emp id, emp name and salary. So I can use emp id and dot emp name and dot salary. So now the code looks more readable and you will be able to use it in your code wherever you want. Now you might be wondering, like, is it like we have to create the tuple only at the return? It is not like that. Maybe I can do something like var em equal to, I will instantiate with some default values, this is 0 and some string dot empty comma some 0. So this is my initial value which I have created. Now suppose there are a lot of functionalities here, so a lot of codes, and after that I will get the employee ID. So I can say so again here it will be item 1, item 2, 3. So instead of that I will say here eid, so that I can identify what exactly is those values. I'll say e name and finally I'll say salary. So now wherever I want I can say em dot eid and I can assign the value and then lot of code, and finally when I get my name, so I can say em dot ename is equal to maybe something Lucy, and then again after a lot of code maybe I'll have to calculate the salary, so maybe I'll use double sal equal to maybe like 3000 into 12, or this is just a simple functionality, but maybe you have a complex logic to calculate the salary using the basic salary, HRA and many other components. So you can have all those functionalities here and finally you get the salary. Then what I'll do is I will say em dot salary equal to, I'll assign this variable sal, and finally instead of returning this I will say return em. So now I think, okay, sorry, I have used salary as int, instead of that I should be using double, so now it will not give that error. Yeah, so now I am returning this em. So here you will notice like the name which I am using here is EAID e name, but the return I am using emp id emp name salary. So it doesn't matter if the data type remains same, it will just typecast into it. So internally when I am using it is all em.eid em.ename, but once I return from this method it will be emp.empid emp.emp name. So these names will be reflected outside. So now when you run this, it still works. So it is the same way how it is. So this using of tuple is very helpful. So whenever you want to just instantiate some set of values, you want to pass it from a method or something. Or another very good example where you will require it is like, for example, you want to create a rectangle, so you are dealing with some graphics or something, and you just want to say the length is some value like 3 and your breadth is some 5. So now wherever you are using, you will say rectangle dot, you get the length and breadth. Similarly you can have, like, for example, you are using points, maybe in a graphics application you are using points, so you can say point 1 x as some 4 and y as some 5. So now wherever you are using this point, you can say point 1 dot x and y. So this way it is very helpful. Whenever you have to pass some set of values, you don't have to create any class and properties, etc. You can just instantiate everything like this and just pass the value. I hope this is useful. So whenever you are coding next time and you are dealing with some set of values, try to use tuple, and you will feel that it is much easier than creating any class or struct. So if you like this video, please subscribe the channel and like the video, and if you need any more information, do comment it below the video. I will try to answer them there itself. Thank you.